We're going to start off with Tank Girl. And for those that don't know, Tank Girl is a 1995 American post-apocalyptic science fiction film directed by Rachel Talalay and written by Tedi Sarafian. Based on the British comic series created by Jamie Hewlett and Alan Martin, the film stars Lori Petty of Orange is the New Black fame, Naomi Watts, Ice-T of The Gangsta Rapper, and Malcolm McDowell of all the movies he's a villain in. Set in the drought-ravaged Australia that isn't a Mad Max movie, years after a catastrophic impact event, it follows the antihero Tank Girl as she and Jet Girl and genetically modified supersoldiers called the Rippers fight water and power, an oppressive corporation led by Kesslee. This is Malcolm McDowell. If you don't know who Rachel Talalay is, she has worked on such luminary projects as Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, where she was a director, Ghost in the Machine, the 1993 version, and A Babysitter's Guide to Monster Hunting. She also has worked on the following TV series, Band of Gold, Ally McBeal. She did a couple episodes. Dice. Wait, V-Dice? And that was Andrew Dice Clay. Terminal City. She did the 2008 Flash Gordon. She's worked on Doctor Who, Dorian.
Oh, no, actually, you have to swing that at Chae. Chae is the reigning Whovian in the room.
She worked on the Greg Berlanti Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl. That explains a lot. Most recently, she did an episode of Doom Patrol, Superman and Lois, and the 2022 iteration of Quantum Leap. So, Chae, how familiar are you with Tank Girl?
I'm not super familiar. I was aware that there was a comic book. I've never read it. I watched the Tank Girl movie a while back. And to be completely honest, the plot for this movie is very hard to remember. My entire memory of this movie is basically a comic book.
Yeah.
I remember several of the stills and the scene where she's sitting on the couch and they ask her how much she was paid for something. And she goes, about $3.50.
Lori Petty has very funny delivery.
Yeah, it's the delivery in this is fantastic, and it's a very strange movie.
My memories, Dorian, of Tank Girl when it came out in 1995, and so that everyone knows just how old a fucker I actually am, that is my first or second year of college, depending on when in 1995. Okay? So while you guys were all running around your elementary schools and whatnot, I was in college going to hardcore shows and whatnot.
I wasn't born yet.
There we go.
I'm not born until 1997, so you guys got 2 years.
Welcome to Old Man Talks to Children About Movies.
Oh, I thought it was triple feature. I was lied to. I'm out of here.
So a couple of things. One, I used to confuse this movie with Sucker Punch, which is another one that's on my list of things to watch. Maybe when we do a Zack Snyder director focus.
I actually love that movie. And yeah, there are some, very quickly, if Tank Girl was made by someone who was like, I want to be depressing and emo, you'd get Sucker Punch.
Perfect. Hey, I want to remake Tank Girl, but sad. Sucker Punch.
Sucker Punch.
So that was one thing too. I would see the posters and like the VHS. That's how old I am. I would see like the VHS of this all the time, and then eventually the DVD. And I kept thinking, is that Gwen Stefani? Was Gwen Stefani in that movie? I didn't know. I wouldn't know Lori Petty if I fell over her until I watched Orange is the New Black. But every time I looked at that poster, I was just like, I feel like that's Gwen Stefani from No Doubt. And like an old man, that's just how I stayed. So imagine my surprise as I'm watching the cast and going, oh, that's not Gwen Stefani. Hey, I was this many years old when I learned that. I'd heard it's bizarre as fuck, and that Ice-T was in it, but Ice-T was dressed up as a dog. And I was like, well,
also Iggy Pop and Doug Jones.
Oh, Iggy Pop's
Doug Jones is. I'm sorry.
Iggy Pop was in there too.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Poor Iggy Pop. I still feel bad for him for his scene with Tom Waits and coffee and cigarettes. You poor bastard.
Tom Waits is in this movie too.
Oh, is he really? What character is he?
Sorry, I got the cast list up. Give me just a second. Keep talking. I'll pop back in.
But those are my lasting memories of Tank Girl, and I never got a chance to watch it. I think there may have been periods of my film watching where I just avoided something that was going to be this weird, but I'm kind of revolving back into that mode again. I never read the comic book. I didn't know until I started reading Wikipedia pages for comic book adaptations that this even was a comic book. So, all right, what do you got for me, Dorian?
I correct myself. Tom Waits was in Mystery Men. He is not in Tank Girl. Sorry, they were right.
Yeah, I was going to say he plays the mad scientist, doesn't he?
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry, they're just so close together.
All right. So, what about you, my child? Tell me about your experience with Tank Girl.
Well, when my mommy and dad, I'm not going to do that the entire time. Good cue though. On like minute I do that, I just see this huge bottle of booze,
and this is when we drink.
Whenever the little fucking kid talks, take a drink.
Yeah.
No, I saw this with I was raised in theater and opera companies, and I hung out with the crew a lot. This was a movie that, especially being born in 1997, I should not have seen at the time because I think I saw it in like 2004. So, still in the single digits. I loved this movie at the time because I loved the smash cut between you'd have an actual scene and then boom, we're in the comic book frames and stuff like that. And it made the crew that were the people I was hanging out with that were backstage crew laugh their asses off because Laura Petty, I know the voice of, but I didn't until Orange is the New Black, didn't have really a face until Tank Girl. Well, actually, Tank Girl was first. But she was the voice of the villain Livewire on the Superman animated series.
Oh, okay.
So I knew the voice and was like, who the hell are you, discount Harley Quinn? No offense, Laura Petty. We love you. You're fantastic. Keep doing that thing you do. But no, I remember seeing this and it became one of those movies that you knew that when you got older and we're actually hanging with people that would drink, it's like, okay, this is the movie you put on for background noise when you're drunk. But it's also the movie to introduce people who are like not normal comic book fans of like Marvel, DC. This was the like, hey, this is a comic book movie. Bullshit, this is a comic book movie. Then you pull up your phone and go, got a comic book.
Yep.
So that's my connection with it. I enjoyed it because it was just so off the wall. And by then I already wanted to be a director. And I was like, you know what? This is all over the place, but you can tell for the most part, everyone's having fun, including Malcolm McDowell. And the thing I'll end with was I swore for years that this movie Tank Girl was connected to Star Trek because okay. Not a week earlier, I had finally seen Star Trek Generations, where Malcolm McDowell also plays the bad guy.
Yes.
And he kind of has the same kind of thing going with like the Nero collar and shit. Like, is this just like his brother or some shit like this? That's like, we don't have like, it's Earth, but Earth has gone to hell, but Starfleet doesn't know about it. Like, I don't know. It connected so well with that. But again, I love Malcolm McDowell and I love movies that are off the wall, but you can tell everyone's having fun while they're making.
It's a very bizarre movie. It's definitely one of those movies I think about when what is the movie medium for but an exploration of your wildest imagination. And that for me is Tank Girl. So the plot basically is there's a drought, a comet hit the Earth, we're living in Mad Max times. The Lord Humongous of this movie is Water and Power, as controlled by Malcolm McDowell. And then you have Lori Petty and her group of misfit toys. And they control a water well. And Water and Power wants all the water, so they attack them, which puts Lori Petty on the run. And she runs and she runs and she finds a tank, which may or may not be sentient. And she runs into another girl, and she is Jet Girl. And they then run into the Rippers, who are not dogs, as such. They are kangaroos crossed with men. They are mutants. That's what they are. Dirty, stinking mutants. And so between Tank Girl, Jet Girl, and the Rippers, they launch an assault on water and power, in which they win. Good wins the day, and Lobster. So let me go to you first, Chae. Before I give my thoughts on this movie, I want to hear from you guys. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to rewatch it since you offered to be on the show, or if it's been a while since you've seen it. But from your recollection, what did you think of this movie?
It has been a little while since I've watched this, but I do think that it's a really fun movie. I really love those weird, off-the-wall, and not even necessarily comedy-style movies, but those movies that bombard you so much with strange shit that you can't not laugh.
Yeah.
And this was definitely one of those movies. It's one of those that the plot line is not necessarily very important. It's the reason that all of the weird scenes exist. But it was all of the scenes, even just like as a little clip show, are a ton of fun. I really like the art style. I really loved the makeup for the kangaroo dog people.
Do you? Please talk to me about that. Let's have a conversation. What do you like about it? It is so like obviously fake and weird. It's like I'm not for a minute, and I don't know how purposeful this was. That's why I'm laughing about it, because I don't know if it's just bad or if it was they were going out of their way to be bad for a reason. But they did not seem like men crossed with kangaroos so much as they seemed like men wearing kangaroo suits they bought at the Spirit Halloween.
It is, and it's very strange. It's very fake looking. But I think it might have been at least somewhat intentional. For me, it really reminds me of some of the more off-the-wall 80s horror movies, where they were doing these huge, like very, very vaudevillian, almost cabaret style makeup work.
Harryhausen, except it's not.
Yes, very Harryhausen. And I don't think that makeup was supposed to look real. I think it was supposed to look like bad graffiti of a kangaroo.
Okay. The movie has
fell down an elevator shaft. They brought him to a plastic surgeon, and they did their best.
Yes.
The movie has a very specific kind of aesthetic. And it's weird because it's a blend of different things. It's a blend of it's supposed to be comic booky, but it's also supposed to be Mad Maxy, but it's also supposed to be surreal. It's a bizarre kind of kaleidoscope of different aesthetics, which is why I'm willing to go along with the fake looking kangaroo men, because especially Ice-T. Can we get the guy who wrote Let's Get Buck Naked and Fuck in the movies and dress him up as a kangaroo, a really fake looking kangaroo? Can we do that? This is America. Can we make that happen? And they did. And God bless Ice-T. They were like, "What? Could you just imagine? He's on set, and they're like, all right, so I'm this kangaroo guy. Do you need a voice from me? Do you need me to? What do you need me to do here?" They're like, "Be Ice-T, but you're a kangaroo. You're a kangaroo.
Just be you, but kangaroo dude."
Yeah. And this is Ice-T every day going up to the set going, "But I want to be an actor. I want to be on Law and Order. I want to do Death of a Salesman." Like, no, I need you to be OG Ice-T, but in a kangaroo suit.
He's like on the phone with Brad Pitt, and he's like, "Man, I'm trying to be an actor here." It's like, dude, it's okay. My first movie, I was like a leather-clad looking S&M dude on a motorcycle. Trust me, this is just the first step. You get past this, you're fine.
So someday someone will let you act, Ice-T, and then they're going to put you in Surviving the Game, and then you'll be sorry. So anyway, let me shoot over to you, Dorian. What did you think of Tank Girl?
Tank Girl is one of those movies that is I've used the food metaphor on here before. It's Kraft mac and cheese.
Mm-hmm.
It's not good for you, but it's filling, and it makes you feel just kind of comfy. This is so crazy, and it's when I say, and I'm going to say the word stupid, but I want to clarify here. It's not stupid in the sense that the movie's bad. It's not great. It's not like, in the top 100 movies of all time, number 25 is Tank Girl. No, but it is a fun kick back with your friends and watch movie. And it's crazy. But again, as I said before, in the opening stuff I was saying, everybody's having fun making this. I'm sure there were behind the scenes stories of, well, this went wrong and crap went to hell. But again, that's 101. But like, obviously Malcolm McDowell's having fun. Ice-T looks like he's having fun. I'm assuming
Lori Petty looks like she's having the time of her life in this movie.
Oh yeah, especially the dance scene when they go to rescue the girl.
Like,
you almost feel like Laura Petty went, okay, as crazy as this is, and I'm sure it was actually in the script because having read in preparation for this some stuff from the Tank Girl comic book, it's that amount of craziness because like half of it, for those of you who are comic book fans, I just want to take two. Tank Girl comic book fans, I want to reach out to you. A lot of what happens in the comic book, they answer in the movie by like what's happening in real life in the comic book is mirrored differently in her head.
Right.
So like, there's supposed to be, and apparently they weren't able to do it, and they thought that this would work better. That whole dance scene is supposed to be a huge fight scene. It's supposed to be them punching the crap out of everybody. But Tank Girl is so in her head and so, used to fighting that she's not seeing it as a fight. She's seeing it as this gigantic Broadway number. And it's like her way of disassociating from some of the terror and horrible stuff that is in the world that she lives in. So I wish they'd have more time to do that. But again, it's still one of those. This movie's memorable because you will never forget it.
I watched this with my daughter and my son. My daughter loved it, but my daughter is also leaning alt/emo/goth, /not, preppy. And she liked, like her favorite movie this year so far was I Saw the TV Glow. Like this was right in her wheelhouse. My son, who very much liked Alien 1979, so you are not allowed to make fun of him. He is a genius and a good boy. However, he thought he got like halfway through Tank Girl and was kind of, what the fuck am I watching? Like there are those of us who can kind of handle the surreal, the movie as acid trip. And then there are those that like their movies a little more concrete. My son tends to be the latter, not the former. My daughter tends to be more accepting of the former, not the latter.
Well, your daughter's the older one, right?
The old daughter's the older one, yes.
Well, again, very quickly, just kind of bouncing off what you said, I think there's a situation where since this movie came out in 1985, and again, it's 10 years plus before I'm born, it's still one of those things like as a 90s kid, albeit late 90s, we still had that like, okay, you watched 80s movies, you watched Labyrinth, you watched Return to Oz, all that weird shit. We kind of got grandfathered in. For 2000s kids, it kind of got great grandfathered in where it's like, okay, the movies are still kind of this crazy, but with your son being, I'm assuming, like a 2010s.
He's born 2014. He is currently 10 years old.
Okay, fantastic. That actually makes perfect sense because he's like, okay, the movies that came out in theaters when I was, in my formative years,
He's fucking 10. He's in his formative years.
Yes, but I'm fancy, so yeah. But
you know what? Keep going.
Drink. But I was like, it's there's that madcapness that was the late 70s and early 80s that we've lost in filmmaking. And somebody who's not used to that, your daughter again got great grandfathered in, was like, okay, yeah, movies were still madcap like this. Your son's going, okay, I know the 80s had a lot of drugs, but shit.
Yeah.
Especially with the big change that happened in the early to mid 2000s, going from a lot of the more physical makeup and effects to things being a lot more digital and looking a lot nicer and stuff like that. I know for a lot of younger people, that can be a huge disjointed mess when people are looking at stuff from the 80s.
I know Mr. Radulich doesn't want to stay too long on one movie, but I do want to make a really quick joke about Tank Girl with, again, the kangaroo people don't look real. I think it's funny that all three of us, despite our difference in age, have now become the new bitchy people because we're like, you know what? Back in my day, they made things for real. And you don't believe it was there, but you knew they were physically
Michael Keaton's makeup in Beetlejuice looks amazing. This is horseshit.
It's like, because like I was CG and like everything being, all computer, like we look at that since we had to suspend disbelief and be like, okay, I know that's not tech. I know it's a puppet, but I'm suspending disbelief. Now, all three of us are looking at movies going, that's a computer. Oh, God, the camera guy just did this across the street. And that was his job for the day. And then they handed it to the animators who were like, okay, Optimus Prime is going to go swing down like that. And
so a couple of things I wanted to share before we move on. One, I enjoyed the movie. It's weird.
But it's fun weird.
That's why I bring up my kids a lot, because I can be like my daughter where I like the surreal. Again, I watch Cool World. Okay. I watch Monkey Bone. I watch Fritz the Cat. I watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And people are like, wait, what? Yeah.
Was Who Wide expanse there. Not hot enough for you? We give you
Sorry, we have a comment here. How do I shut off the dialogue print at the bottom of the screen? I cannot see the chick on the bottom of the screen. There should be a button if you mouse over the screen that says turn off closed caption there, friend. Anyway, comments. We appreciate you all. Mwah. Anyway, I like the surrealist nature of the movie. I don't always love like the post-apocalyptic stuff, especially now, because it feels a little overdone. It feels like, everybody's out in a fucking desert. Deadpool was just in a desert. Mad Max in a desert. Dorian Price in a desert. Everyone's in a desert. Bugs Bunny, first base. Catch it, first base. Bugs Bunny. But back in 1995, it wasn't quite, the setting du jour. So also, you brought up like everyone looks like they're having fun on set. Yeah, there are movies that are trying to bring you into a world that is obviously not real, but everyone's going with it. So, like an Avatar, they want you to feel like you've left your universe and have gone to a completely other one. And it's it's like an immersive thing. Then there's a movie that it's aware that it's a movie. And so everyone's having fun and they're sort of, acting like they're the Joker in the movie. Everyone's just big and loud, and they are very much aware they are entertaining people, and so which I kind of like the nature of that. I did want to read something from the wiki here that I thought was interesting. In the theme section of the Wikipedia page, and I want to get your reaction to this, Chae, and then Dorian. Writing in the 1997 book Trash Aesthetics, Popular Culture and Its Audience. Sounds like a great book, by the way. Deborah Cartmel states that while the comic book showed Tank Girl to be unheroic or even an accidental anti-hero, the film sets her up with the classic Western generic emotional and moral justifications for her liberation and revenge on WNP, and she witnesses the slaughter of her boyfriend and her trusty steed. She also sees one of the commune's children being abducted and is herself captured and enslaved. Cartmel, who also says Tank Girl holds parallels with other contemporary post-feminist icons, as she displays dominant female sexuality and familiarity and knowing the coolness of outlawed modes of sexuality, such as masturbation, sadomasochism, and lesbianism. Your thoughts, if you have any. Chae.
Honestly, I think for its time, it was fine. I don't know all that much about the comic, and I don't know how Tank Girl behaved in the comic. But I think for the time that it came out, I think having an almost Deadpool-like heroine was definitely pushing a couple of boundaries. It wasn't pushing massively, but it was enough to make the show interesting. And to be completely honest, I don't think Tank Girl was really the focus of the film. She's who the film is about, but it wasn't really that much of a character piece about her.
Right.
She's our POV in a way because she's
she's kind of just the POV. So her being kind of generically female hero-ish isn't really that big of a deal.
There's definitely, I think, in terms of, again, thematic aesthetic, there's the odes, notes to like punk rock, Riot Girl going on here. Like I can see this as sort of like a post-feminist piece. I can see that. I definitely see this as something. Again, I go back to my daughter, who tends to be very feminist, except for when you ask her to pick up a heavy object, then she's not so much. Then she's a Disney princess. Me, I need a prince. But I can definitely see this as being something that, that a kid kind of, not feeling quite in tune with the rest of the world might gravitate towards, and feeling like, oh, look, this is empowering. This is a character who owns her sexuality, is brave in the face of danger, is, slightly crazy. Like this is a character that could speak to kind of an outsider kid. Dorian, go ahead, Chae.
It's very much an aesthetic film, and it's very much Vivienne Westwood in the late 80s leading into the 90s.
Yeah. I just wondering if you had any comments there, Dorian.
Yeah, no, that's actually what Chae just said is a perfect segue. I think for the time it was made in, and that's always something we have to remember, is like, this is made in 1985. So this 95. Is 95. Sorry, my bad. That's what I meant. But it's the 80s refusing to die.
Right.
Never. I live forever. I never die. I live to 1,000,000. But I think that with what she said about the person who wrote the article, or wrote the book, said, she's right. It does kind of switch from the comic book where she kind of stumbles into situations and she's not always like this, like she was in the movie. However, in the if they had done what the comic book was in 1995, it again, no producer would have cleared it, never would have worked. If they did it today, and like the 95 version had never existed, it had been directed by someone like Patty Jenkins, who did Wonder Woman. It had a much more serious take on it, which wouldn't be a bad thing necessarily. But overall, it is fantastic to have this hero who isn't necessarily a hero. It's just kind of, hey, some shit happened, and this has to be taken care of. And that's one of the things that I love about the movie, is that she's not like, because my father taught me that this is what is right and this is what is wrong, I will astride my tank, do good things. Like, no, you fucked with my people. Guess what? I'm coming for your ass.
So last little bit here, just some housekeeping. So the budget on this was $25 million. This bombed. This made a tidy $6 million. So did not find its audience in the cinema as such. However, if you look at the legacy of this, despite being a critical and commercial failure, Tank Girl is often said to have a cult following. Petty's version of Tank Girl remains a popular character at cosplay events. We don't have Alexis here tonight, who is our convention person, but I'm sure between the two of you, you've been to a con or two. You see a lot of Tank Girls?
Actually, since I work a lot of the conventions, I mean, like I know Alexis with Honeysuckle Rose Creations is working them. I'm also working them, but I'm bouncing around like a freaking pinball, taking pictures and video. At every convention I've been at, I've seen at least one, if not more.
Yeah,
that makes that. Now that we're moving into, this thing being over almost, 30 years old. There's more and more as it reaches its 30th anniversary. Sorry, Chae, over to you.
To be completely honest, I don't think I've seen a lot of Tank Girls, but I also don't go to a lot of conventions. It's just not really my thing.
Okay.